Hello, everybody. Nice to see you. I don't really see you, but I'm visualizing that you're out there seeing us. And welcome to the Substack channel and the At Hugh Smiley podcast. And it's really great to have you with us once again to enjoy a delicious interview. And if you'd like to click and subscribe to the channel, that would be great. So today I have a very special lady, Freda Kemp of Toronto. And Freda is a lifelong student of something that's called the Ageless Wisdom and is very active in service projects, bringing light and understanding and goodwill to many groups around the world, even and in different countries. And so, Frida, welcome to the podcast. I'm so happy to have you here. And
Yeah, thanks, Hugh.
yeah,
Great to
so
be
many
here.
subjects we could talk about, but we'll
I
go,
know.
we'll go for about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, something like that.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. So, first of all, that term, the ageless wisdom, a lot of people may not have heard it or maybe not really know what it means. Could you
Hmm.
explain a little bit about what that?
Sure. Well, ageless wisdom is really a term that includes a broad number of authors and a broad number of um, spiritual traditions, I would guess you would say. But it primarily started with Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, who founded the Theosophical movement back in 1875. And of course, she brought with her also a whole group of people. So we would consider all the works of Theosophy and the authors like Annie Besant and Leadbeater, for example, to be part of. There's other Jeffrey Hodgson, and there's a whole range of authors there. And she was followed. That was considered the first dispensation of the teaching because it came via the masters. The second was through Alice Bailey, and that was she didn't channel, she was stated she was an amanuensis, which is a hard word to say, but like she considered herself a recording secretary who received the information telepathically. So she never gave up. Sometimes you see trance channels who give up their sort of physical vehicle in order to either writing or speaking. So she didn't consider herself to be a channel, but she did record, I think it's 26 books, and she wrote several books of her own. So that and all of the authors who write about it, probably Michael Robbins is the most notable, but there's many, many authors who have taken that work and expanded on it. And then there's people like Rudolf Steiner, Gurujev, Omram, and there's also the entire works of Agni Yoga, right, by Helena Roerich, for example, that would be included. So there's a huge number of authors, but the beautiful thing I always tell people about Ageless Wisdom, it doesn't matter whether you're reading Steiner over here or Omram over there. Typically, what you'll read has internal consistency. So, one author isn't contradicting another. And if you think they are, you probably haven't understood it properly. So that's the beauty, I think, of ageless wisdom.
Okay, I have a few terms that you
Sure.
flung out there. One, the master. What's the master? Who's the masters? Another one is what what are the teachings, and
Sure.
what makes them ageless, as opposed to just ordinary wisdom or
Mhm.
spirituality, perhaps, or
Sure.
knowledge, even.
Well, I'll start with the last question first. So, what makes them ageless? Well, I always say it takes the highest and best of the world's religions and religious traditions and conveys them in a way that, at first everyone thought it was very simple and easy to understand, but anybody who's tried to tackle either the secret doctrine or cosmic fire might beg to differ that it's easy to understand. But that was the intent, that it took out a lot of the religious terminology. If it was coming from Buddhism or from Hinduism, it made it easy to understand in the English language. So it did make the teaching more accessible for the average person. So that's number one. The masters. So we recognize, or people who are on this tradition recognize that we have an inner government. It's composed of masters. Typically, there's seven what we call kohans. Those would be senior masters on each of the seven rays. And we would have the world teacher, who's the head of spiritual group. We call them the hierarchy. We call them the masters. We call them, the shining ones. There's many names from different traditions, but they're recognized as advanced humans. They're people who have come up through the human tradition. We always think of the Christ and the Buddha as being the foremost ones, and certainly they are. But they're the sort of people who have excelled at the spiritual path and have gone ahead of the rest of us and are there to provide us with guidance.
Uh-huh.
How's that? How was that as
Oh,
an explanation?
interesting. Yeah, okay. Well, I'm just trying to yeah, so certain individuals. So there's a hierarchy. So well, it makes me think
Well,
of
people don't not always like that word, but it just means that there's certain beings who have greater spiritual either knowledge or expression, and they're respected by the next level down, and they're
Mhm.
supported by that next group of beings. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember reading somewhere, I can't remember where it was, but it probably applies to a lot of spiritual teachings that, there are different levels of understanding and
Right.
maturation and development and awakening and
Hmm.
self-knowledge and all that kind of thing. And it's hard to know how we're lucky enough to have the little bit of knowledge we do. Sometimes it could be inherited from our parents or even
Hmm.
in our genes or
Hmm.
experiences
Hmm.
that we have, opportunities, um, college of hard knocks. But
Yeah.
I guess the saying is we can understand somebody that has is at a lesser level of
Mm.
enlightenment, but we can't understand the mind or the perspectives of somebody that's higher up. So that
Right.
does sort of infer that there is a kind of a hierarchy of
Hmm.
consciousness, would you call it?
Consciousness, yeah.
Yeah.
But, this is where people sometimes, have trouble because there seems to be dissonance here or a contradiction. So we say there's a hierarchy of beings, and then we say we're all one. And, we always say at the level of soul, right? We are one. We're all part of the kingdom of souls, and therefore we all have that kind of communion with that wonderful group of beings. But our consciousness doesn't necessarily register that. So as we evolve, we come to our own expression, where at the level of the soul, or what we call the spirit or the monad, yes, we're all one, we're all connected, we're all part of that universal consciousness that we call the universe.
Mhm.
So um, that's the distinction. It's only that the masters have, quote, mastered their ability to stay in that level of consciousness for
Right.
extended periods of time. Yeah.
I'm imagining the image of many thousands of little rivers and streams going down the mountainsides and through the valleys and so on. But eventually they all come to the ocean and they become
Hmm.
one. Or
Hmm.
the drop is individual and has its own personality,
Right.
you might say, signature consciousness.
Hmm.
But when
Hmm.
it is absorbed into the sea, it loses its individuality, perhaps, but it gains the wisdom
Hmm.
of the whole body of water.
Hmm.
Is
I
that?
don't think we actually lose our individuality.
Yeah.
Everybody talks about this unity as unity and diversity. So diversity
Right.
is honored and respected. Each of us is an individual. We have a face that's completely unique, right? We have a fingerprint that's completely unique.
Mhm.
Our eyes are unique, right? So every part of us is unique, but we're part of the whole. So we have to learn to adjust our consciousness to adapt to those two things being true at the same time.
Right, right. Yeah.
Mhm.
That sounds good. Yeah. Well, the diversity, that's the juicy part. So
Yeah,
so many
yeah.
lively slight gradations, and all the
Hmm.
cultures and languages and music and
Hmm. Hmm.
character types and So, okay. Well, so would you call the ageless wisdom occultism or esotericism? Esotericism, is that?
We call this esotericism. Esoteric means inner.
Ah,
Occult means hidden, so it's not the negative thing that everybody thinks it is, but esotericism means inner. So it's about going in, as
mm,
we do in meditation.
mm,
We let go of the outer
mm,
life and outer expression. We go
yeah,
inside into our heart, into our
right.
mind. We become still.
Yes.
And then that's our form of connecting, first of all, with our own soul, but ultimately with this broader community of
Yeah.
souls.
Right.
Mhm.
So probably all of the great religions, and there have been, five or six or seven or eight or nine. There's the exoteric form, which might involve certain revealed prayers and churches,
Mhm.
rituals even, or ways of doing things as a group. For example, the Muslims 5 times a day they
Mhm.
prostrate, to God, Allah. And then there's the esoteric, sort of the essence of the teachings of the great ones, which
Mhm.
more is more like a personal thing, like a mystical or
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
relationship with the divine within.
Right,
The
right.
yeah,
Yeah, just about all
exoteric.
religions have
Oh,
that inner mystical path.
yes,
But I would say as I say, all roads lead to Rome.
right.
So whatever spiritual path really, interests you, takes, you respond to that. That's the way you want to proceed.
Mm,
There's spirituality in every religious path and every religious tradition, right?
of course.
And even within the spiritual community, my goodness, there's so much diversity and differences, right? So don't get hung up on terminology. Don't separate yourself from other people because, they're on a different spiritual path than you. It just means that that's the path that has appealed to them. That's part of their background and culture, perhaps. And that's how they've chosen to express their spirituality.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So the question that I often ask my guests is because sort of the aim of this podcast, one of them anyway, is to
Hmm.
look at this very thing, different spiritual paths and
Hmm.
different ways of knowing and experiencing reality,
Hmm.
consciousness,
Hmm.
awakening. And so I
Hmm.
often ask people how, if there was, not how, but if there was a time in your life, like a certain experience or an aha moment, where
Hmm.
you sort of pivoted or you had an awakening or a new insight that changed the direction of who you were as a person, especially in
Hmm.
regard to your spiritual journey.
Sure. Well, I think I had a couple of them, and the first one was when I was in university, and I had this what I would call a burning desire to learn TM, the Transcendental Meditation,
Yeah.
which was, I have to say, was a big fad. Once the Beatles went to Rishikesh, and
Right. Yeah. Back in
there
the
wasn't a
60s,
person
70s.
in my age,
Yeah.
yeah, who didn't want to do TM. And I do remember spending a huge amount of money at the time. I think it was $200 to learn 2M and get my secret mantra, which was all nonsense, really. But the point was that I was given a little bit of training in how to meditate, and that was a turning point for me because I started a meditative practice.
Yeah.
And I think the second turning point was when I joined a group. So there was a group, a fellow I knew who was, had a spiritual group in the back of his office, and they met every Friday. And you know, I felt that same burning desire. I really wanted to be part of the group, and I really asked to join. Of course, I was, and then I made a few spiritual friends, and those people that I met there have, been lifelong friends. That was back in the 70s. So
Right.
here I am, 2025, and I'm still friends with the same people. Some of them have passed, but I'm still friends, and I consider them part of, my inner, group, people that I love and care about deeply. Yeah.
Right. So you had a burning for the learning.
Hmm.
And so in Buddhism, they say there's three parts of being a Buddhist. One
Hmm.
is, if I can remember this, the Dharma
Hmm.
is the path, which I
Hmm.
guess is the spiritual path. Um,
Hmm.
and the third one is the Sangha. I think that's all.
Sangha, which is the community. Yeah, spiritual
Yes.
community.
And
Yeah.
what's the first one? The relationship
Uh,
Buddha, I guess.
hmm
Oops, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, the relationship with the Buddha, I guess you could say the teacher,
hmm
and then
hmm
the path itself, which includes the spiritual practices, maybe the meditation, and
hmm hmm
learning about the history, etc. And then there's the
hmm
community, which
Right.
reinforces what we're learning.
Sure.
Okay, so you had mentioned in the little conversation we had earlier
hmm
about something that has really caught your interest of late, which is the
hmm
Schumann resonance.
Oh,
Would
yes.
you share a little bit about that
Yeah,
with?
really fascinating. So,
Yeah.
I started doing a bit of research, and I really started because we understand that the sun is going through this period of high activity. And so, if you remember, I think it was last fall, we had these beautiful aurora borealises. And
Mhm.
this comes when we get these what are called coronal mass ejections from these sunspots that are in the sun. And when you learn about it and read about it, you realize that these big, huge electromagnetic projections, and we always are getting that from the sun via the solar wind, but this is like a burst of this. So I think of it as like a big bundle, and it's absorbed into the either it's passed along, as we've seen that beautiful, if everyone's seen that beautiful view of the electromagnetic field. It looks like a little bit like an angel with a head and a robe or a tail.
Okay.
So a lot of it just flows out along that, and then
Yeah.
but some of it, quite a bit of it, is absorbed into the earth, and then that is released into the planetary electromagnetic field in a number of ways. But one of the primary ones is through lightning. And this lightning, apparently there's lightning strikes going on around the world all the time, like hundreds of them, different parts of the world.
Sure.
And that lightning flash produces both light as well as, of course, we know sound through thunder and also electromagnetic waves, including radio waves.
Okay.
So I don't know if you want to show that little
Oh,
demo, but as it's
yeah. I was just a couple of minutes before we came together
yeah,
here. I thought, oh, I should do some homework, and so I found this image. I'll just share it on the screen, and
I'll just go on talking while you
yeah,
find
that
that.
was
But
perfect. Yeah.
basically, the Schumann resonance, you'll see it in a minute when Hugh does this picture. Here we go. He's going to show how the lightning strikes start bouncing off the ionosphere. The ionosphere is the upper level of the atmosphere, the very highest level of the atmosphere. So here you see them bouncing back and forth, and that's how they
Wow.
produce the resonance. The resonance is very, very low frequency. The lowest is at 7.83 hertz, which is actually below the level of what we can hear, but it has six modes. So those little reflections, each of those reflection, which is about 6.5 hertz above, is there, and all six of those, they form a chord. So that's why the Schumann resonance is referred to as the heartbeat of the earth. So it's like a background. We can also think of, the sounds. If it was a sound, it would be a very, very low hum, right? And there's some recordings on the internet. If you listen to them, they sound like a Tibetan om or one of those big, loud trumpets that they blow.
Yeah.
It could be like the drum, in our own First Nations.
Yeah.
They drum at a beat that relates to the heartbeat of the earth. So I think Indigenous people and early humans innately knew about this heartbeat and responded back with their music and their drumming.
Mhm.
So
I'm just
because sorry,
excuse
go,
me. I
I'll
just
I'll stop.
coincidentally, 22 years ago, I was in India and I visited a Tibetan monastery, and I
Mhm.
arrived right at the moment of the Tibetan New Year on the
Mhm.
little bus, and they were playing these big long horns that you're talking about.
Right,
So
right, right.
I have a picture of it here.
Oh, let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, there they are. So they have this really, really low tone, right?
Yeah, yeah. Amazing. Yeah. Like
Yeah,
thunder.
beautiful.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Okay, so
So, Go ahead.
Is there some way that, I mean, knowing about it is interesting. Is there some way that we can kind of integrate the Schumann resonance or eat it, in some way to
Yeah.
be healthier, stronger, happier, all that kind of stuff?
Well, so one of the hypotheses, so scientists are really just getting into the study of how the Schumann resonance, affects the human body.
Yeah,
It happens at the same frequency range as our brain waves, so that's one way. Our brain waves could actually be entrained to these sounds or notes, and we may get our sense of well-being when we're connected to the earth and we're in tune with that Schumann resonance. So that's some of the research that's going on. It's heart rates can be attuned to it. There's some research showing that, a group of people, their heart rate becomes entrained to the Schumann resonance, and it's not the same, but it's maps in the same highs and lows. And we've all been told many, many times, get out in nature, right? Go
right.
walk barefoot.
Yeah,
And I think the reasons for that is not just, of course, the beautiful smell of the trees and, connecting with the earth and all those things. I think it also relates to that Schumann resonance, that if we can walk with our bare feet, the reason they say bare feet is so our electric charge is the same as the earth. We let go of some of those excess electrons when we walk barefoot. But I think
mhm,
the other part of it is getting this attunement with that Schumann resonance, which humanity has evolved within that range of beats for so long. And I think we need that. One of the issues of modern life is that there's so much electromagnetic pollution around us, right? From
right.
all our electronic devices, from high tension wires, from cell towers, you name it. And so maybe we just need to either get out of that pollution or ground ourselves in our wherever we are with
Yeah,
a kind of a walk in the park
right.
or,
Or a little bit of
just
both,
in,
maybe. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Reduce our
And
time
it,
on our gadgets, our screens,
right,
and
right,
not look at our Instagram last thing before we go to sleep,
right,
and
right,
then have a little walk in the park. So I
yeah,
just have
right.
and a question is emerging as I'm listening to
Sure.
you. It's going right back full circle to the beginning.
Hmm.
We were talking about ageless wisdom,
Hmm.
and it's so exciting right now what's happening with AI. Um,
Right.
I mean, the internet now is sort of old hat. And
Hmm.
now, there's another paradigm shift.
Hmm.
And I mean, it's really looking like within our grasp, within our lifetime,
Right.
we could have
Right.
the healing of all kinds of pathologies, diseases, um, and all the knowledge of history and the whole human
Hmm.
race at our fingertips, not
Hmm.
only accessing it but integrating it and serving it up, made to measure portions. So this ageless wisdom that people like yourself, and I have to admit, I've dabbled a little bit in them, me too.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
so all these years of burning and itching and reading books and meditating and try to learn and learning a little bit along the way. Um,
Hmm.
could it be that if somebody has that even a little spark of desire to know or for
Hmm.
consciousness, that they could achieve it much faster now without so much blood, sweat, and tears with
Oh,
AI?
absolutely. I don't know AI is the answer at all, but I think that young people don't need necessarily to go through the learning and education that we did. I think they're going to be naturally intuitive and naturally connected. I don't know if you've looked at this wonderful thing called the telepathy tapes online, but it talks about a whole group of autistic children and youth who are connected telepathically,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Huh.
So they're representing the next
Uh,
step in evolution.
right.
I don't think we should be afraid of AI. We should be the masters of AI. It shouldn't be the masters of us. AI will probably free us up to pursue so many other modalities. We'll have time for meditation, for
Mhm.
healing, for group work, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's so many young people online. They do have that thirst for spiritual knowledge, but their approach isn't quite the same as ours. We're going to let go of all that book learning, and our learning will be far more intuitive.
Mhm. An exciting time to be alive. Wow. And
Yeah.
I'm getting a bit long in the tooth, but inshallah, another few years on this planet, and I'll be able to integrate some of the years and years of studying and learning and
Sure.
experiencing and trying to
Sure.
connect the dots.
Yeah, yeah.
So also just one last little thought when you were talking about people who have achieved certain levels of
Hmm.
learning and knowledge and the again Buddhism. Um, I love all the religions, but Buddhism is one of my favorite.
Hmm.
I'm also a Baha'i, but
Hmm.
there's the concept within Buddhism of the Bodhisattva, which is
Hmm.
a human being who has struggled and learned and for a long
Hmm.
time and has reached that level where
Hmm.
they could be free, liberated to go up to
Hmm.
the highest heaven or whatever's awaiting
Right.
them as a reward. Back to the Godhead, as the song used to sing. However, they choose to remain and to stick with it until every other living being or
Sure.
human being at least has also
Right.
reached that level. So they help and serve.
Exactly.
They
Yeah, they're a
sacrifice their
server.
own,
Yeah.
yeah, their own
Yeah.
well-being. So
Absolutely.
I would say that you're a bodhisattva.
No, I'm not. But anyway, thank you for
Yeah,
that.
yeah, well, I watch you. I've known you for 3 or 4 years now, and I can see how many different groups you're involved with, and you don't stop. Like sometimes people have a big wang bang doodle, right, and that big course or
Yeah.
something, and that's it for 5 years. But
Yeah.
with you, it's
Well,
like
it depends on the sign too. I'm a Capricorn, so Capricorns are have dogged determination,
steady
right?
wins the race. Yes, that's true.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
One step in front of the other.
yeah,
So
and
that's part
structure,
of it. Yeah, yeah.
structure.
Well, I guess I should at least mention before we wrap this up that I do lead a group called Open Heart,
Oh, right.
and Open Heart is an online group. We meet every week,
Oh,
but we also do lectures, we do retreats,
uh-huh.
and Hugh is one of our lecturer. We have a partnership with the Toronto Theosophical Society, and we have a lecture series there. I do regular full moon meditations. So anyone who wants to participate just needs to reach out to me, and I think
Yeah.
Hugh will um, help by
Yeah.
putting the
I'll put
my
the link.
email and yeah,
It's
and the
actually
Facebook link.
a
Yeah.
Facebook group, and you would just ask
Hmm.
to join the group if you're on Facebook,
Exactly.
and then
Yeah, yeah.
be in
Hmm.
touch. Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Frida.
You're
Have a
welcome.
wonderful day. It's a sunny day in
I will.
Toronto, and we're both going to go for walks, right?
Yeah, exactly.
In the snow
Connect
and the
with that
sun.
earth.
Yeah,
Connect with the
maybe
earth.
not barefoot today. It's still below
No,
zero.
no bare feet, but we'll connect.
Right. Alrighty.
Thanks, you.
Thanks again. Bye bye. Take care.
Bye bye.